Welcome to the land of no easy answers. Our world, though more connected than ever, seems to have forgotten how to connect. Everywhere you look, the disconnect is obvious, from nature to the people around us and even within ourselves. This is Alex Knight, and thank you for joining us as we attempt to unravel the mysteries of the mind and your universe. Now, let's meet our panel. Over in one corner is Kristin Rumohr. There she is.
Hi.
And in the other corner, Aaron Stewart.
Party.
He's there. He's confused. That's okay.
As usual. It's the usual state.
Today, so this is a follow-up to just our topic from the other day. For those that haven't listened, go back and listen to or watch our video on sleep, because today is going to be about dreams. Dreams, weird dreams, and the science behind dreams. There's actually a lot we don't know about dreams, but we also know a fair amount of dreams, whether we want to or not. That we talked, I think, a little bit about the different stages of it. We didn't really get into the different stages of sleep per se.
Okay, I was waiting for you to
detail.
say the different stages of dreams. And I was like, ooh, this will be fun.
Yeah, like the one where...
of dreams?
Yeah. Yeah. Like the one where you enter the seventh circle of hell. No?
Isn't
anybody?
Wait, you guys leave the seventh circle of hell?
Aaron,
I mean,
what was the source for this information that you came across? Was this from the same article about sleep, or is this somewhere else? Or
no, this was absolutely just something that you have pulled out of your own head. I did not post a link on this or anything regarding dreams whatsoever.
Now, you're not going to share about
a continuation of the past episode on sleep.
Nobody really wants to hear about our fucked up dreams, so let's try to keep that to a minimum.
I don't remember my dreams.
I've got some interesting
dreams. Fascinated by them.
Okay. But how,
tell me about your fucked up dreams.
The angle that I'm interested in, though, is how, because we talk about the brain and brain health all the time and the science around that. So I'm interested specifically about, do dreams actually affect our waking lives? In any way, in any meaningful way? Because as we all know, there are, you have different types of dreams. There's lucid dreaming, and sometimes you have fantastical, crazy dreams that actually don't make any kind of sense and don't have any basis in reality. And sometimes they're extremely vivid and they do make sense. It's like you're watching the playback of a movie. So I mean, there are times where I have been deeply disturbed by dreams where I was thinking about it for days after. Yeah. And I can't even...
So you're answering your own question.
I can't even... I guess I am answering my own question, but I can't even think of a specific dream or anything, but that's not even the important point. My point is that I guess they can affect you, because there have been many times where they've affected me.
Living proof right here.
We have living proof of it.
Well, see, and I was just thinking back to, we have this body of research around dreams and sleep and everything that you can kind of go online and find out about now. But just think about what things were like 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, right? Like, just imagine the first of us to dream. and just what that was like, right? Like, you're going about your day, you
wake up, like,
you lay down to sleep, and you're like, what is going? Oh my, what is that? You wake up and you're like, whoa, okay, what's going on here, right? Like, can you just imagine? Like, before we had any framework for the brain and how the brain operated and why sleep was important, blah blah blah. Like, just run your brain through what it must have been like to medieval and pre-medieval, just like.
Do you remember the time when we didn't actually dream?
But that's the thing, like we always did. Apparently, evolutionarily, we always have, right? Because we all sleep. As per the previous episode, creatures that we didn't think would be possible of sleep because they didn't have brain structures to speak of are apparently capable of, or at least need that. And again, now it comes down to whether it's specifically a neuronal function or whether it might actually be a part of our metabolism.
Okay.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Right. And whether it's something actually to do with, apparently there's some research to do with their livers regulating part of our sleep cycle as well. So somehow the cells in our, that was part of the article. I think had a separate link from the previous sleep. Anyway, continuation of, but where there might actually be other parts of our bodies that are part of why we need to sleep, not just our brains, which was interesting. But
yeah. Kristin, one of the things that I brought up the other day was when you talk to patients, I asked you is the discussion of sleep. How much sleep are you getting? What kind of sleep? What kind of quality sleep are you having? And I'm sure also suggestions on how to improve their sleep too. But I would imagine dreams must get brought up, right? I mean, that must not be that uncommon in a session with a patient. Do people, because everyone reacts differently. I'm sure, some people are probably more preoccupied than others with stuff that happens in their dreams. I mean, I've had discussions with coworkers about upsetting dreams, and I'm looking at them, why are you telling me about this? I mean, you're upset about something, and sometimes like I even get mad that they're telling me like, oh, I had a dream and you were in it and you were a jerk and you made me cry. I'm like, why are you telling me this? It was a fucking dream. What the hell is wrong with you?
It's a shared experience,
right?
That's why
and
share that
I looking back, I'm like, was I right or wrong to be mad that you were sharing this dream about something that didn't happen? I don't even know how to respond to that. Why are you telling? I don't talk to people about my dreams, but I'm sure you must have conversations with people about that.
Yeah, because dreams affect everyone. I mean, to the level you want to let them affect you, essentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the jury's still really out on the function of dreaming. Right? We've kind of got it down structurally within the brain. We can see what's happening and why we kind of have these random patterns. But, the actual function, there's so much split literature. Does it mean anything? Are you subconsciously working through issues? Or is it literally just a random firing of neurons consolidating your day and then trying to make sense of it by pulling from information you already know? Which is why it's, often family members and close people to you. And then often you'll get that, I don't know if you guys do, but I'll have dreams where it's just some random face maybe I saw on the street once, right? And this person now plays a, prominent role in the dream. So I personally think it's very individualistic to how much you let it affect you. But within the psychology world, it kind of depends on what school you fall into and whose kind of teachings you follow, right? So psychoanalysis, Freudians really do a lot of in-depth dream analysis, right? They feel it is important.
He loved it so much.
They feel it is a representation of your unconscious and, things that you need to work through. So I do see a lot of clients that then come in, they have got really fucked up dreams, and they think something's wrong with them. And it's like, how can I have these types of thoughts? I clearly have repressed issues, I just dreamt about murdering my mother last night, and,
last night I had a dream that I looked in the mirror and all my skin melted off.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yep. Or like teeth falling out, that's a very common one.
So common.
That's
you hear about that all the time. But also, Kristin, are there strategies that we can employ to encourage a certain type of dream? Are there things you can do that can somehow influence the types of dreams? Like if somebody's having debilitating, horrifying nightmares and it's becoming a serious problem where it's affecting their daily lives, their work, they're constantly preoccupied. Are there ways that we can influence the type of dreams that we have? I wonder about that. Is that something that could be part of a therapy session?
It again kind of depends on what you fall into, theoretically wise. But I mean, I personally think it's then about managing the general anxiety around it. Because as we talk about a lot, the brain likes to fall into patterns, right? So if you are giving credit to these types of dreams, right? So when you wake up, we've all had nightmares, right? And the amount you let it affect your day will kind of influence how often you will have that sort of dream again, right? So if you are debilitated by them and you're anxious, that's kind of the cycle. That is why it's perpetuating. So it's dealing more with like how that's affecting you, how that anxiety is really influencing your day to day. That would ultimately, hopefully, theoretically, then start to influence your sleep in a positive way. But again, at the same time, there doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason as to why you will suddenly get a nightmare versus a lovely, pleasant dream. You know, and that's when you mentioned earlier the concept of lucid dreaming, right? Where you realize you're in the dream and you can take control of it.
I love that.
Yes.
Right. Which is a whole other thing. It's very cool. I'm not very well versed in that myself to speak of it from an actual, scientific standpoint. But yeah, just general interest wise, I mean, that's cool.
This is totally my own thing, but I've experimented with trying to impact the types of dreams that I have, to try to lucid dream and take control by, it's been somewhat spotty, but it's been successful sometimes on some occasions, where I find that if I actively make an effort right before I'm about to sleep, if I say to myself, internally in my inside voice, if I try to tell myself this is the type of dream I'm going to have, I'm going to take control of the situation. If I do that enough consistently, I find that sometimes that can help. But again, this is not based in any kind of, I've never talked to a professional about this. This is just me experimenting to see just what happens, right, when I do that.
And it's worked?
It's worked a few times, but again, it's not consistently enough where that I can say with conclusive, this is a pattern. If I do this is exactly what happens every time. It doesn't always work. So it may be completely random. It may not be related to anything I'm doing either.
Mm-hmm. No, apparently from what I've done some reading on it, and apparently it is a matter of repetition.
Okay.
So again, it's the operative word there was pattern, is doing it over and over again, because apparently the more you do it, the better you get at it.
So if I maybe do that every day, 7 days a week, maybe log it, keep track of for
a month or two, then you'll probably see better results, right?
Okay.
It's the same thing with astral projection, which is again something that they're now trying to actually study scientifically. And apparently part of it is, again, when you get to that point where you feel yourself starting to drift off, they say it's something about basically vibrating yourself out of your body. Okay, so whether that essentially creates a disconnect inside your brain so that you can focus on two separate things and that allows you to drift into a separate place, who knows? But again, that's something that they're trying to find, because apparently there's actual, scientific evidence to show that there's actually some truth to the idea that these people are actually separate from their bodies and able to actually see what's going on around them. Which is just very fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Brains are just so much fun, right? Yeah. And again, just the idea that if one person is capable of that, we all technically have the structure to allow that to happen for all of us. And it's more just a matter of training and repetition and just kind of knowing that your brain is capable of this, that you can learn how to do it, and you just need to know the steps and just practice it, right? And it's the same thing with a lot of this stuff. So it's the same thing with how you get yourself out of a dream pattern. Right. It's a matter of repetition. I've heard that apparently in order to remove the emotional content from something inside your head, a good way to do it is to kind of, when you replay it inside your head, to remove the color from it.
Okay.
And so apparently your brain holds on to details. So if you're trying to remember something, the more details that you can pile onto it so that you're attacking it from a bunch of different areas of your brain, the easier it'll be for you to retain it. It's the same thing with a bad memory. Hey, so the more color, smell, other things that you attribute to each of these bad memories, the easier it is for your brain to hold on to them. And therefore, again, the easier for your brain to deprogram those things by just taking those simple steps of the next time you run that 3 in your head, remove the red, right? And just think of it in a black and white grayscale kind of thing, because apparently that gives your brain less to hold on to, and therefore it assumes it's less of a priority than why you had looped it in the first place.
That's science for you, baby.
This is why I read
Very
stuff,
cool.
ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes every once in a while I can
just
pull
blew
it out
my
of the back
brain.
of my head and go, oh no,
Blew
holy
my
shit, no, I
mind.
get it. Right? Like, yeah, right. And that, when you think about it that way, it absolutely kind of makes sense. The reason it's so powerful inside your head is because you have given it that power. Right? And it's the same thing with nightmares. Nightmares are powerful to you because you gave it that power. And if you learn to start taking that power away from it and learn that you have control, lucid dreaming proves that you have control over your dreams more than you think you do. Right?
Sure.
And it's not just this passive thing that just happens to our brains and we just have to, sit idly by while our brain takes us down this merry path. But you might actually have some control, not only of, like the lucid part of things, but your your nightly dreaming. You might actually be able to just, again, remove the emotional content from some of these things and maybe see them from a different perspective. Maybe this thing wasn't as bad as you thought it was. And if you just pull yourself out of it a little bit and look at it from, this other perspective, looking at it from this way, you might see that it's not as bad and it isn't worth all of this looping inside your head that you've been giving it. Right? Science,
Really
baby.
interesting.
Yeah, that's right. That's science, baby. Yeah, no, I'm not. I think our audience might be simultaneously fascinated and also dumbfounded by this entirely complex.
I get that most of what
discussion.
comes out of my face is on the dumb
Yeah.
end, but but every once in a while, you have these flashes of brilliance, right?
Exactly.
It's speaking for myself, of course.
What is I don't know.
Yeah, that's again another part of this conversation where like we just don't know. We don't know for the
There's a lot we don't know.
right.
Yeah.
And again, from previous conversation of sleep, where your brain shrinks and it's the glial cells coming into the gaps inside your brain structure and actually cutting dendrites, which allow you to either keep that memory or basically cut it off. And so it's the removal of those dendrites that actually are causing dreams, because they are essentially getting recycled through your brain, right? And so it's the death of these dendrites that's actually causing dreaming. Like you're taking those memories and cutting them off essentially, or whether it's the ones you're keeping or who knows, right? But again, if you understand that, this is what your brain is doing, it might give you a better understanding of how you might be able to control that and use that as opposed to it running you rampant.
I'm not sure I understand dendrites because we've mentioned that a few times, but it's never really.
Neurons.
They're neurons. Okay.
So basically, a neuron inside your head, and they've shown actually like brain scans of like an actual like moving neuronal network. Okay. And think of a neuron like basically a tentacle monster, where it essentially is constantly trying to make connections to all of the other neurons around it all day, every day. That's its entire job. They're just making connections, and then they decide whether they need to keep connecting or whether they can separate and go off and do separate things. That's literally, it's amazing to watch. You watch the whenever they go to a movie or something and they show like the picture of them going into somebody's ear, and you see this, these very rigid connections of these neurons and they're flashing back and forth. That's not how it is at all. They're constantly doing this, right? And so that, I think, is a good analogy for the brain as well, is that your brain isn't stuck on any one thing. You chose to stick it.
Yeah.
And your brain, you can absolutely just decide to go, and again, it's just a matter of, understanding why our brain has led us to this, what we can do about it, and hopefully how to break ourselves out of these loops to find that there's an alternative path, But again, if you don't understand why it's doing it, because it's constantly trying to, right? And our brain is just in a constant state of arousal. And most of the structure of your brain is just trying to go, okay, buddy, here, just make this connection. It's cool. Right? But that's not what life is, right? It's constant this. It's never this. It's never just hey, we made a connection. It's, you got this other stuff going on.
I love the way that you explain that, because I think that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to understand.
Well, I like to think that I'm good at, disseminating information. If I'm good at one thing, right? Like,
if I may be good at only one thing.
Yeah, I'm good at taking information and just trying to figure out how that applies to us and how I can hopefully bring that to you so that we might all get better and make each other a little bit smarter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too with dreaming because there's a lot of actual money going into the research of this, has been for decades. There are institutions, research, like that's their full-time job is, studying people, examining how people how people dream and night terrors. We didn't even talk about night terrors. How that's have you seen some of these videos where they film these people that are having these night terrors? And I feel really bad. Like these people, I've never had that problem before. These people are kicking and screaming, and it's horrible experience.
But see, to an extent, you kind of have, because that apparently is a part of the brain where, like, the reason you don't act out your dreams is because your brain shuts your body off. Okay? And it does that, specifically so that you're not sitting here acting out all this stuff. And then that apparently is a misfiring of that mechanism, right? Where now your body is not shut off, or at least it feels like it has to turn itself on while you're being suppressed in this dreamlike state. Right, which makes it again why you're supposed to not wake them up, because they're technically asleep, and that actually is a real real problem. Hey,
there's also like the converse of that, the sleep paralysis side, where you're awake.
I've had that,
but that's what the night terrors are. You're paralyzed. You're not able to move, but you're still technically moving, right? Like, and that's the disconnect, and why it's so scary for people, right?
Yeah. It's terrifying. I mean, I've had sleep paralysis only happen to me a handful of times, but when it does happen, and I remember the last time it happened was years and years ago. All the typical things you expect with sleep paralysis. I thought I was awake, but I couldn't move my body. I was hearing demonic voices talk to me, right? And it was really, really, really horrifying.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend it.
No. Well, yeah. And again, that just seems like it's.
And we don't know what causes sleep paralysis either, right? Do we?
Well, yeah, the paralysis part is a natural function, right? It's again to keep you from acting out your dreams. So you do experience sleep paralysis every night.
Oh, okay. So that's like a safety net.
Exactly. It's again so that you can run through all of these things inside your head without doing the whole oh my god all day in your sleep, right? Like it's so that you can actually just shut your body off.
Gotcha.
So it's actually a part of the function of the brain that it actually goes and it shuts your body off, so you can't do that. And so that's where again, so part of your brain is woken up enough to think that it's supposed to be moving while the rest of your body is going, no, I'm asleep, right? And so that's where you get that disconnect inside where you're going, I feel like I should be moving, right? But I can't. And so a lot of people report what they call the hag, where there's a almost universal, people that have been having these night terrors report somebody sitting on their chest. And you've got this face sitting right in front of you and staring at you while you can't move and you're paralyzed, but you have this person apparently, and that's the manifestation of the brain as to why I can't move, because there's no other explanation other than somebody sitting on top of me. That's the only reason my brain can, in my sleepy state, jump to as to why I can't move.
Gotcha.
It must be somebody on top of me, right?
I've had that sensation before of somebody like the pressure of somebody being on top of me, and it's not a good feeling.
I used to have the exact opposite, where I would feel like I wouldn't be able to move, but that my consciousness was expanding. And by the time it got to the size of the room, I would be in a real scared state of going, oh, I can't go any bigger. I can't get any bigger. Right? It was a really weird thing, but yeah, that was my dreams.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm pretty lucky. It's been a while since I've had a deeply disturbing dream that preoccupied me for days. So, which I'm glad they don't happen that often. But actually, I should talk. Let's talk about this for a moment. Things that we can do to avoid also having horrifying dreams. Every time I've had horrifying nightmares, I've it was because of something that I actually did, like making a poor decision, like eating a big meal and having alcohol at 10 o'clock at night, right before bed.
See,
fucks
there,
me
actually
up
there.
every
Actually there.
goddamn
Exactly.
time.
And that is actually a scientific fact. If you
exactly
eat
that.
Food, yeah, if you eat food, especially bad food and alcohol right before bedtime, you will be prone to bad
Specifically
nightmares.
cheese for some reason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
why?
it's
I don't.
resident cheese has
Do
a
we
bad
know
influence
why?
on-
Why eating food and alcohol before bed?
Because your body needs to shut down, and if it's preoccupied with processing food, it
Right.
takes up a certain amount of energy and brain power
working
to do it.
overtime.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like, you need to have kind of nothing going on here so that your brain can focus on repair, right? And so that's where, like we talked the last episode, there's 3 cycles of brain. The third one apparently is the most important, and that's why, you know, getting 4 hours of sleep a night can really fuck a person over, because it's that third cycle of sleep that actually apparently is the repair cycle. Right. So the first 2 cycles are kind of the glial cells going in and just kind of randomly hacking shit to pieces. Right. And then the third cycle is where your brain actually repairs stuff and consolidates it into memories. Right. So again, that's the kind of the most important cycle of sleep. So you can get up after 5 hours or whatever, but it's important to go back to sleep afterwards, because that's what your brain is primed for waiting for. Hey.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
That's the REM sleep cycle. That's where we're dreaming as well, right?
Exactly.
And that's where you're kind of on the verge of consciousness, but still sleeping. So that's when all of the nightmares come up and the sleep paralysis and everything else. Like the veil is very thin, so to speak.
It's our deepest cycle, right? We go into the deepest sleep in that third cycle, right? The first 2 cycles are kind of, you know, deep, but then our third one, you take a real dip. Hey, your brain goes into a real deep, like, shut off stage. And again, so if you're having these misfirings while it's trying to do that, it'll absolutely mess you over.
And Aaron, do we know how far? Let's say 7 hours of sleep. That third stage, is that quite a few hours into sleep?
Well, again, it's 1.5 hour cycles. So basically, you get the first 2 cycles are technically 3 hours, right? But then there's, you know, gaps in between where, you know, it does kind of miscellaneous things where I think it's like a half an hour in between each cycle or something. But again, it's that 1.5 hours, right? So it's not technically, like, I guess 7 hours if you get it all together, but if you break it out, it's the same thing, right? Like, again, it doesn't matter how you're getting that sleep as long as you're getting those 3 cycles through. Right. And it might be longer. It might be 2 hours. It depends on your own brain. Right. Like, you might need that 2 hours of sleep because it just requires that little bit of extra cleanup.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
And that might be due to, you know, if you're, you know, lack of exercise, you know, bad food. If you're not feeding enough good stuff to your brain, it's not going to operate well. It's just one of those silly things. Hey. Right. I mean, like you said, if you're eating burgers and having beer right before going to bed, your brain's going to be occupied with that instead of repairing.
Wait, that's not a good life choice? Damn.
I was actually just reading an article the other day that they've apparently concluded that there is no safe amount of alcohol.
Well, how do they know that? Because there's also research that says one glass of red wine.
Yeah, I know. And most of the reason that they had to say that was because of the pushback from the alcohol industry that said, you can't say no drinks, come on. And so they had to say one drink just to be like, okay. And then these cuts people back, and we got to, and it's a kind of a common ground. But the problem is that they've generally found that, like, even one drink a day increases your risk of cancers, you know, metabolic diseases, all sorts of different. It's just, there's no, you know, good amount of alcohol. It's just, unfortunately, kind of the finding that they keep coming back to. And as much as we want to gloss it over, it's just not good for us.
I like my
right?
wine, but, you know, I guess like anything, try to have as little as possible over a longer period of time.
Let alone understanding that because your body doesn't like it, maybe you should combine it with things that it does like to give it something to process that isn't going to be quite as bad on you, so that you might be able to have that alcohol without it being such a, you know, burden on your body, right? You know, have a you know, some fruit with it or something. I don't know, right? Like,
I mean, that's.
But what? Wine is fruit.
Well, I think it's more the fiber. I think actually the problem, mostly what they're finding is now that, you know, our current diet doesn't allow us enough fiber, and if we had that fiber, it might push the alcohol out with it. You never know.
Eat more bran.
Sure, that's a start.
Well, you know, you raise a good point too, because we you know, we've talked about sleep, we've talked about dreams, and brain health has to be a big part of like how we like our overall lives. Like we have to, like you said, we got to eat the right things, drink the right things, know when not to drink and when not to eat. Like drinking and eating at 10 o'clock at night right before my usual bedtime is probably not a good idea. Again, why do people make bad decisions? Keep coming back to that. I keep making bad decisions. Thankfully, not that often, but...
And as far as I understand,
happen.
like the Freudian theory of dreams, right? Like you're basically working through stuff. So, there was a theory that nightmares were a manifestation of all those things that you were fearful of or that you had done that you felt was a wrong or were wronged or that kind of thing. Is that basically how I'm understanding that, Kristin?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah.
Or
and so
subconscious repressions.
Yeah. So it was essentially your brain punishing you for being bad. It was the idea of nightmares as far as I can get it. Hey, yeah. So a lot of this, again, if you're essentially, assuming that you're wrong for having these thoughts, that would manifest itself in an uncontrollable loop inside your head that you can't get out of, right? Instead of understanding that we all have those thoughts and it's the acting out of those thoughts that becomes the problem, right? Like we all have these stupid, little bits in our brain where you say something to someone and they just can't help. You just right? Like, and as brutal as it could be the worst, and your brain just has to just like, oh, what's that? Oh, damn it. And there's I'm not even going to start them because, it's but it's just one of those where you just loop somebody's brain and then they just immediately, that's just where we go.
Yeah.
Instead of having that logical part of our brain that kicks over and goes, oh, wait, no, that's not right. Right. So again, I think it's part of that, the nightmares are, something where it's a matter of just kind of, again, removing some kind of the emotional content behind a lot of this stuff so that you can get more of an analytical view.
Yep. Sometimes it's more difficult than others.
Oh, but that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any part of this is going to be easy, right?
Yeah.
But I also look at it as like a health thing, right? Like I don't tell you, that maybe you should, change your diet because you're fat. I tell you should change your diet because you're unhealthy. And there's a big difference there.
That's right. Gotta stay woke, people.
And that's the thing. So it's not a matter of me, attacking you, but me trying to look out for you. And I think there's again this thing where, even with, sleep, we punish ourselves if we're not getting the right amount or doing this, and it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of finding what works for you. Yeah. Right. And it's a matter of finding what works for you to make you healthy.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And if anything that we can do to help all of us be healthier, that's all we can, like, that's what this whole thing is about. So, yeah.
That's right. And compassion. We talked about compassion.
Oh no, fuck it.
The last episode too. That's something I gotta keep working. I consider myself a fairly compassionate person, but sometimes on certain subjects, it's Well, as I like to always say, I love all of you and I hate every single one of you. It's mostly love. So many layers to that. There are so many layers to that.
That's you may call me Lord Dichotomous. I've actually I christened myself Lord Dichotomous. Yeah. I'm good at finding the opposite end of things and being like, hey, what's that?
But don't get on Aaron's bad side because everyone has a bad side.
That one right there, yes. Usually incoherent and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button. Make sure you get every new episode each and every week, which, of course, we do release twice a week for your entertainment purposes on Tuesdays and Thursdays on demand. And, of course, if you prefer the audio-only version, if that is sort of your cup of tea, we are available in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher, Alexa, pretty much everywhere where you can find podcasts these days. And we would love to hear from you. We love our listeners. Drop a comment and let us know what you would like to hear in a future episode. If there's a topic that has been bugging you or something you think we need to discuss because it's fascinating, please do let us know. We're on Twitter.
Send us your dreams.
We're on Twitter, Facebook. Please don't send us your dreams. We really don't want to know about your
dreams. That's why I was waiting for a pause there, but she just kept on.
Follow us on
Send us your dreams.
Follow us on social media. I'd prefer that. We're at the Subvert Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Almost forgot Instagram. We got to start posting there more often, but we'll get there. That's all the time we have for this week. If you'd like to send us your dreams, let us know what kind of messed up dreams you've had. Let us know. We can talk about it. It'll be one giant fucked up group therapy session, I guess. And remember, we are all fucked up, so let's be fucked up together.